Hey everyone, it's Fox from modelmaking.guru here. Welcome to part 7 of our build of the Trumpeter 1/35 Stryker in the style of Drebin Stryker from Metal Gear Solid 4. Hey all, welcome back again. Right, don't worry, I haven't jumped ahead completely. In this episode, we're going to get to this point. We're going to have the diorama almost completely finished with some accessories, oil paints, smoke washes, and spray painting. Some bits have missed out because filming didn't work or for other reasons. So, I'm going to jump straight to the first bit, which is adding some shading in the spray booth. So without further ado, let's go crack on with that. Right, okay, what we're going to do, before we start doing any washes or anything like that, I am going to just apply some shadowing to this diorama. I'm going to use the Tamiya rubber black again, just to give some depth and shadowing. I'm going to very lightly airbrush it. New camera angle because I'm using Ted's camera tripod, so it may be a little wobbly. It's his grippy thing I showed you earlier. So what I've got some tire black in the airbrush with a little bit of thinner. I'm just going to do a test spray. It's about a 50-50 mix of Tamiya tire rubber black, or rubber black, and Tamiya thinner. So I'm just going to do a quick test spray and make sure we've got some flow. Yep, there we go. Cool. Now I don't want too much shadowing, I don't want big dark lines, so I've got the paint flow really quite low. I've got it set quite low. Just double check my focus. That's where it goes wobbly, apologies. There we go. Yes, I've got the paint set quite low, and it's 50-50 thin mix, so I just want some subtle shading. So I'll put the diorama back in, and we shall crack on. And that, if I can find the switch, that will do for the first stage of spray painting. Hope you can see all that. Yeah, so what you do is, if you take the paint flow down to almost minimum, you can get really close with the airbrush, and that's how you do very fine lines. You get very close to the surface, and you've got a very fine line with not a lot of paint coming out, so it won't splodge. If you increase the paint flow, or if you want to feather that line and make it wider, you pull the airbrush back and the line gets wider and feathers out and becomes more subtle. So if you're doing like the corners here, use very little paint, go right in the corner, right close up with the airbrush, just to get the dark patch. Then increase the paint flow, pull the airbrush back, and just do it from a distance, and you'll get a more widespread bit of coverage. It won't be lines, it'll be more just subtle tones and hues, and you can use that just to add patches like here. That was quite nicely covered up, so it looks like perhaps this pipe's hot and it's darkened the paint. You get that. Look at a radiator against a white wall, it's got those black plumes coming up the wall. There you go, I've explained a mispaint. Here I blended it out a bit so it just looks like dirt and oil. There you go, I've explained a mispaint again. And just along the pipes. So that's all you do. So what I'll do now is I'll go and change the paint in my airbrush, and I will try some sandy tones just to, the game takes place in the Middle East, so just to give it a little bit of a sandy tone, just to put some colour in there. So, back in a moment. Okay, right, next step. A very light misty coat of some Tamiya XF59 Desert Yellow. Now I was debating whether to put sand on this diorama. I'm just going to check my focus as always. But it's kind of indoors, and it'll make the scale look a bit funny for what I want. So I'm not going to bother putting any actual sand on the diorama anyway. But I'm going to give it a very light, just brushy, misty coat of this Desert Yellow, just to add that little bit of colour to the palette. And there's lots of other stuff to do after this. This is just these steps. So I've got some 50-50 mix again of Desert Yellow and some Tamiya thinner in the airbrush. I'm going to put the paint flow on quite high because I want to do it from a distance. I don't want to do any real lines. I'm just going to do a quick test blast and then we'll go. I'm going to do this from a great distance first of all, just to see what it comes out like. It's more like a filter, this. Okay, right, we finished in the spray booth. I had to cut sharply there because my airbrush was resting on the compressor, and I knocked it and it fell over. The cap came off the airbrush, paint went everywhere. So, oops. Anyway, never mind. Not the end of the world, I'd finished anyway. So you can see now, I've added the little hint of sandiness. The bit where it went a bit wrong, you can see there, hopefully. I just rubbed it a bit with my paint cloth just to break it up, and that'll get broken up further anyway. But it's added some nice little touches to the walls and the floor. Just gives it that dusty look. Again, we're nowhere near finished yet, so I'm not too fussed that it looks still a bit janky. But that'll do for the moment. There's lots more touch-ups. I'm going to do some metallic bits on here and other bits and bobs and a decal, so that'll do for the moment. What we're doing now is checking our focus. What we're doing now is adding some extra parts to the diorama. I got myself a little set of resin parts from add-on parts. They do things like crates, magazine boxes, barrels, things like that. So I've got some bits and bobs. I've pared them down. Let's put these away. I got a selection of gas bottles, barrels, modern barrels, not old style barrels. Oh, there's one other thing I got as well. But I've narrowed the selection down to 3 barrels. Hopefully you can see all this in the new spanky camera angle. 3 gas bottles and a couple of pallets. Now what I'm hoping to do today is show you a bit of how to work with resin. So let's crack on. I did get one other thing from them and I'll show you that because it's rather epic. It is, if I can get it out, a Persian rug. It's actually properly, I'm not going to take it out of the bag, but it's actually properly sewn, properly woven. It's not just paper, it's actually material. You can see the weaving on the back. It's got the little twiddly bits around the edge. Now I was looking for a Persian rug. This is a 1/35th scale model, so I was looking for a Persian rug that fit. They do a 1/35th scale one, which is a bit too big really for what I wanted. So I plumped for their 1/72nd scale which is a little bit too small, but it's more for what I'm looking for. So there you go. Right, resin parts. These are all cast resin parts, which means basically that one's escaping. Which means basically they make a mould of an object. It's a 2-part mould. Put them all together, pour the resin in. The resin sets, and you get one of these puppies. There are certain things you need to know about working with resin. It's flexible insofar as if you warm it up, you can bend it. So if you've got a piece that was slightly bent out of shape, you could just warm it in some warm water for a second and gently bend it back to shape. So sometimes you'll get kits with long, thin pieces, especially if you do like gaming miniatures and they have long like spears or battle axes. Sometimes they'll be a bit bent out of shape, so you can just heat them, or you do it with a hairdryer, heat them and bend them back into shape. They are very brittle though, so you can shatter resin. So when you work with it, be very careful. It can be primed and painted like any other piece of model stuff. Treat it as you normally would. You can't glue it with normal plastic glue because it's not plastic, it won't melt and bond together. So you have to use CA or cyanoacrylate glue, our old friend. Told you last time I got the Logic glues. I'm not going to use those today. I'm going to use these other two that I got from somewhere, I can't remember. I think I got them from eModels. I think I did. The only reason I'm going to use these is they've got the little tiny pipettes on the top, or the little droppers, so it's a bit easier to use on small pieces. One other thing with these models, with resin models, is you will need, and you absolutely must, use one of these. Not one of these necessarily, but some sort of mask. When you're filing and grinding resin, it puts out billions of little tiny particles. Now, unlike plastic particles, which are harmful anyway, resin particles are sharp and pointy and nasty, and if you breathe them in for long enough, you will turn your lungs inside out. Now, this is a bit of overkill. This is a respirator mask I got from B&Q. It was like 20 quid. Because at the time I was spray painting in I had a tent in the garden that I was spray painting in because the model was too big. So it's a bit of overkill. You could probably just get away with, if you're just going to be spraying a little, sanding a little bit or something like that, you can probably get away with just a little decorator's mask, a little cloth one that you put over your mouth. You should be fine. So what we shall do, one other thing with resin, you'll find the parts often come on little stands, on little bits. It's because of the way they're cast. They're cast with a little nub on the end. That's where they pour the resin in. So, for example, this palette piece here, hope you can see all that. This palette piece here actually comes like that. And there's a little bit of cleanup to do. That's not a problem. Now, there's a number of ways you can do this. You could just get, if it was a thick piece, you could get a very fine hacksaw and cut it down. Because this is fairly fine, though, what I can do is just gently cut it with a modelling knife. So if I just, there's a line here, very fine line. I'm going to just score that line a little bit. It should just take a couple of goes. There you go. Done. Throw the waste away. 2 palette pieces. Let's do another one. Not sure if this will work on this piece because I don't want to shatter it. If you bend it, it can shatter. So I'm just gonna, what I'm gonna do first is actually change the lens on my helmet, on my visor, because I can't actually see. I'm trying to keep my head out of shot. So I'll be back in a moment. I'm just going to change my lenses. Back in a second. Right, that's better. I've just changed the headset so I can see from a distance. From a distance. Right, so let's try cutting this off. See if we can do it with a knife. It should come to here. This is the bit that goes under the palette, so just very gently. Probably asking for trouble here. I should do it flat like that. Oh, I don't know where that went. I think it went inside my clothing. So that was easy. Sometimes it's just pressure. Yep, I know where that one went. That one went there. The other thing to be wary of, these will ping off all over the place, so put your finger over the edge, eh? Right, so there you go. We've got 3 pieces and a palette, which will basically go together like this. Fiddly time. Obviously neater than this. Just a quick test fit. Like that. And you'll have yourself a palette. So I just need to clean these up a little bit. So, and I know I'm only doing a little bit, but this is where best practice, always put on a mask. Doesn't matter how little you're doing. I don't care how little you're doing. You always, always, always wear a mask. So I'm just going to pause while I take my, let me just take my visor off and then I'll put my mask on. Now at this point you won't be able to hear what I'm saying, but I'll keep talking anyway. I'll subtitle it. Now I can do Darth Vader impressions. Woohoo! Right, so we need to file these down. I really do sound like Darth Vader now. Well, I have the breathing of Darth Vader. Ideally, when you're doing this, if you can do it outside if it's not throwing it down with rain or freezing cold. That's the best way to avoid dust. If you're doing it inside, wear a mask, keep a window open, and when you've finished, clean up. If you've got a little tabletop hoover, that's brilliant. If not, just clean up. Just, you know, get a damp cloth and just get all the dust. Let's crack on. I may put music on this bit because you won't be able to hear me talking. Okay. Metal file. And there you go. Sanding. Right, I'll go. Right, that's sanded. So I'll go off and sand the rest of the pieces, and then we'll glue this palette together. I won't show you me building all of it because that'd be really tedious. But I'll go and glue this, sand the rest of these off. Those pieces there. And then I'll glue them together. And then we'll start the painting process. So, back in a moment. And we're back. Right, okay. These little extra bits have all been given their coats of paint. I decided against filming it and just doing the still shots. It seemed to work out much better. What do we have? We have the palettes, which were, everything went through a similar process. The canisters were glued together. The barrels are already built. Pallets have been glued together. Everything was given a coat of primer. Then the barrels were given a coat of neutral grey. The canisters were given a coat. These were given a coat of neutral grey. The barrels were given a coat of red brown, Tamiya red brown, for a rust undercoat, and the pallets were coloured in a mixture of, just remind myself which colour it was. It was desert yellow mixed with a little bit of white. Then the barrels were sprayed sky blue after masking off with the Humbrol Maskell to make little chips and dings. These were painted sky blue. These were painted a mixture of orange and flat red, and then a blast of red to get some speckling of a brighter colour. And these were just given a little bit of a blast of the tyre rubber just to make some darkened areas underneath. Then the Maskell was removed and these were all nice and chipped. Now I did actually do a whole section a minute ago where I filmed myself using these Tamiya weathering pastels. Unfortunately, all you could see was my head, like this in the shot, with my visor. By the way, that's a light. If you're wondering what this was, this is one of my visors and it's got a light on it. So I use this one because I can see from a distance with this one, so I can't with the others. So I did a load of pastel use, and then you won't have seen any of it because you will just see my head in the shot. So I'm going to do it again, very briefly, to introduce you to Tamiya weathering pastels. The beauty of these is you can keep doing it and it won't make a difference anyway, too much of a bad difference. What I'm going to do is basically break up, now they don't look flat here, but before I did the pastels on them they were a flat blue colour, a flat orange and yellow. I'm going to use Tamiya weathering pastels to just break up the colour and add some dirt and dust and shading. Tamiya weathering pastels are, well, weathering pastels. If you've used things like the MIG pigments before, they're very similar. It's just a dry powdered pastel shades, different various colours, dry pigments that you can apply with a brush or a sponge, or you can use your own brush or your own sponge, whatever you prefer. They go onto the model. They're very easily removed, even just with a moist fingertip, so with your manly sweat of labour. So avoid touching the model while you're doing it. When you finish using them, you always varnish it or seal them with a pigment fixer, just so they're permanent then. What I'm going to do is, I'll show you how to use these. I wanted to break up the colour of the gas canisters and just give them a bit more of the familiar colour. Now you can see I've already done some of it here, so the effect is kind of lost in this section, but bear with me, I'll just demonstrate it. I wanted to add some breakup of the orangey red colour with some, which one did I use? I used pale orange, and then I used some sandy dusty colours on the bottom just to give it a bit of dust and dirt. So we'll get a little applicator and I'll show you. So I did actually film this, but the whole thing was written off because all you could see was my enormous head. So hooray. So very simple. All you do, get your applicator, you break up the surface with a bit of a cocktail stick. In this case that one, because it's there and it's handy. I'm going to use the sponge end, and all you do, quite literally, is just slap it on. As much or as little as you want. Now when you spray the varnish on, these will dissolve and become less obvious. So you can overdo it, because you know when you spray the varnish on it will pull it back and make it less obvious. So all you do is quite easily just dot it on to break up the colour or to enhance the colour. Now if you're wondering why there are kind of peachy colours, there's a very good reason. In Japan, a big thing for female model makers, and I don't know why, this is just Japan for you, they're kind of crazy in Japan. Big thing for female model makers in Japan is to make model delicacies, so like cakes, treats, sponge cakes, angel cakes, chocolate eclairs, things like that. They make models of them. Usually cast them in resin or plaster and then paint them, and they use the weathering pastels to give that kind of cake look. It's hard to explain. If you just look it up on the Googles, you'll find it. And some of them are fantastic. I mean, I saw a picture of an eclair and my mouth was watering. It looked so real. But that's the thing that apparently female model makers in Japan like to do, is make model cakes and delicacies. So these come in quite handy. There's actually a range of Tamiya pastels just for that, as well as these modelling ones. You can see on here, this one is designed for Japanese Navy ships. This one is just, well, it's another peach one. This one is sand, light sand and mud, and it's just general weathering. And there are other specific ones. They seem to be mostly Japanese Navy colours, but they are very useful. So I've put some of that pale orange on there. It just breaks it up. I'm just smearing it a bit with my finger. On the barrels, I will do a little touch of, the best colour they do is this one called grey, and it's just a bluey grey tone. It's absolutely perfect for anything that's blue or grey, to break up the colour and provide some highlights if it's a lighter shade than the paint itself. And it's exactly the same process. Really hope you're not seeing my head. Get the applicator and just apply it to break it up. Now you can see here, I'm not going to do too much because I've already done these barrels. I'm quite pleased with them. I'd hope you can see there's like a highlight on this rim, on these rims here. That's a mixture of this blue grey, which is perfect if your model is painted German grey, Tamiya German grey, Tamiya medium blue. This is an absolute brilliant colour for mixing up the colour. If you've got a, let's say you paint something. Say you painted that block there, medium blue, Tamiya medium blue, and you want it to look lighter in the middle than on the dark. You could airbrush it, but if you don't want to do that, one option is to paint the flat colour, give it some washes to darken the tone, maybe a smoke or black or something, and then in the middle you would get your grey and you just dab it around until you get this big bright patch in the middle. and blend it slightly. And then when you varnish it, again, because the pigment dissolves slightly, it just blends in and smears and softens, and you get this nice mixture between the dark and the light then. So it's a really brilliant colour. I use this the most. And that is Pigments, or rather the Weathering Master Pastels. I did have a much better version of this going on, but like I say, all you saw was my head. So, oh, I know what I need to do. One last thing I want to do is a bit of sand. The sand colour actually matches, hello, everything's escaping. The sand colour matches most closely what I have painted on the diorama, so I'm just going to dot this at the bottom and over these middle bits. You can put it on quite thickly if you want, and it can build up into little lumpy bits. It's a good highlight colour. You can make raised details pop out a little bit. There. Hoping this isn't all lost now with my head. And it just breaks up that colour. So now I've got the blue, which is kind of lighty bright blue, is now a very dirty blue. I've got the rust showing through from the red brown underneath where I pulled the paint chipping off. I've got the grey and the sand, just breaking it up and patching it even more, making it look dusty and weathered. And that, my friends, is that. Do a little bit on this palette. It's not very good on these palettes because they're kind of the right colour anyway. So it's about the same colour. So I'm just doing it on the edges just to highlight it. And that is pastels. Now I'm going to go away and varnish these. You have to varnish them when you finish doing your pastels. You can't. I mean, if your model's going to go in a display case and it's the last thing you're doing, and you're never going to touch it, you can leave it. But if you handle the model with pastels on, you are going to put smears and dislodge the pastel. So if you're going to be handling it at all, fix it with either your matte varnish or your gloss varnish, whatever you're doing. If it's kind of weathery and dusty, then it's probably going to be matte varnish. Or if you're using, say, MIG pigments, which are very similar, the little bottles of the powder, they're actually easier to apply with the brush because it's a little jar of powder rather than a block. If you're using those, they do a pigment fixer which goes with them. And I know these are available for me models. I think they do the MIG pigments, I think. But I'm going to go away and varnish these, and then when we come back we shall stick them in the diorama, I think, and then crack on with the weathering there. So hopefully you've not just been watching my head. Back in a moment. And we're back. Okay, right, all my little bits have had time to dry now. Varnish on them has dried. So we have our little bits. There's still more weathering to come on these, but we'll do that in situ once they're in place on the diorama. Okay, so I'm going to place. You can see now they look nice and weathered, and they've got some subtle shading on them as well. Just makes it look a bit more natural. So the brown for the rust isn't just brown; it's brown with speckles of the sand colour and the grey colour, and it's patchy and uneven. So let's get this show on the road. Let's get these on. So, there we are. I'll just make sure you can see all that. So, we now have our bits glued in. Bring it up close so you can see it. Just adds a little character to the setting. Nothing too complicated. I said there will be more weathering to do on those. Because what I'm going to do next, and you'll see how much footage we've actually got. I haven't really shown you much today, so I'm going to do some smoke washes. I'm going to paint some flat aluminium on this grill before I do the smoke washes, just to give it some scuffed metal effect. And then when we finished, I'll go back and do some highlights so it's shiny. So I'm going to give this super glue a little while to set. I'll probably put some thin super glue in there. And when we come back, I'll have painted some metallic colours on here, and we'll crack on with some smoke washes and then some oil paint weathering. So, back in a moment. Right, okay, everything's been glued in. I've done a coat of matte varnish, and I've added some flat aluminium patches to the edge of the, whatever you want to call that, the bit of checkerboarding. Next stage is a smoke wash. Now the smoke wash is just purely going to be to darken the corners and give some patchiness and some shadowing. I've already kind of done it with the spraying earlier on, but this is just even more now, just collecting all the little edges and things. I also noticed when I was playing back the last bit of film, there was a bit of whatchamacallit, mascot on here that hadn't come off. So I took that off, and then there's a load of grey bit there. So it's yeah, you do tend to find mascot for ages and ages. Like I've just found another bit there. Oh, damn it. You do tend to find mascot. When you use a lot of mascot on a model, you tend to find bits of it like weeks afterwards. It's always quite satisfying. Right, so what I'm going to do is get this ready. Now I've got a smoke wash ready. It's just Tamiya smoke mixed with some Tamiya thinner. Because this is quite a big piece and it's supposed to be dirty, I'm not going to be careful. I'm just going to slap it on. So without further ado, let's give it a go. I'm just going to go from the top down, so it's going to run, but that's absolutely fine. Because I really want to suggest darkness, but also I might get a few runs in it, which is fine because I want to suggest, you know, stuff running down the walls. That's what happens. This will only take a few moments. And we're back. Okay, right. We're on for the next step now. The diorama, all the little bits I added have now been varnished and glued in place and everything's set. We're now ready for the oil colours. Now I've pre-varnished the mod diorama, and I'll show you in a second. I pre-varnished the diorama with a coat of Humbrol Clear. It's a gloss varnish that I've sprayed all over it, a couple of coats. So it's nice and smooth, and the paint for the weathering, the oil paints, will take to the surface nicely. This is the oil paint weathering stage. I'm not going to do too much. It's not like when I'm doing a model kit and I'm doing all the different filters and layers and streaks and so on. I'm just going to do some basic stuff, so it won't take more than 5 or 10 minutes. We're going to do some streaking and some patchiness on the floor. Got some basic oil paints. We have bog standard Artist's Green. Which one's that one? Permanent Green Light, and some Payne's Grey, very useful colour, it's like a bluey grey shade. We have some dark rust, I think, light rust. Artist White, this is the MIG Abteilung 502 Abteilung, let's start that again. The MIG 502 Abteilung paints, you've seen me use them before. Artist's White, we have copper oxide blue. We have light German grey, or German grey highlight. We have Starship Filth and Engine Grease, my two favourites. I'll just put these over here. Now you may notice for the whole of this film my camera's been off to the side and it's all been kind of angled and wobbly. It's because I'm trying this new camera stand. I finally decided it's probably best to line it up in the middle so you can see it, and hopefully try and reduce the amount of my head appearing in shot. I've also set up some white boards just out of shot to reflect the light, so hopefully should give us some decent light. Okay, we've got 3 brushes. Big fat soft chisel brush, slightly smaller fat soft chisel brush, and just a normal brush. I keep my oil brushes, as I've said before, I keep my oil brushes separate, and you should always keep them separate from the brushes for your acrylics. Right, to the diorama. This is where the white balance goes wonky. Okay, right, the diorama's now pretty much done, apart from the oil weathering. Everything's got a nice glossy sheen because of the Humbrol Clear. If you're making a model, you use the clear as a glossy finish before you put on decals or any kind of washes, just so there's a nice smooth surface for the paint to work over and it can run into all the little crooks and nannies. I've added a couple of smoke washes went on here as well, so you can see it's nice and grubby now. It's a bit more grubby than it was before. Hopefully you can see all this. Let me just see what you can see. Yeah, you can see that. Cool. So, what we're going to do, we're going to do some very simple washes. Well, some streaking and some washes. Some streak. You know, I haven't got my teeth in at all. Let's start that again. Some streaking and some discoloration, some filtering. So I have a small pot with some odorless terpenoid thinner, or in my case, some low odour thinners. As I've said before, you can get specific oil paint thinners. You can use things like white spirit, but I wouldn't recommend it because it stinks. Get some low odour thinners. You can either get specific model oils, or you can go to your local art or hobby shop and just get any old low odour thinners for oil paints. Low odour is best because it's low odour. That's not really anything I should have had to explain to you. So what we're going to do, we're going to do some streaking on the walls. And we're going to do some patchiness on the floor. So I'll do the walls first. I don't know if you'll be able to see any of this. Let me just see. I've got to figure out how I can do it so I can see it, but so you can see it as well. And I'm learning where the camera is now so I don't get my head in shot like that, which I know is really annoying. So I do apologise for my head appearing all over the place in this film so far. Now I'll do this quickly because you've seen me do this before on the Viper. For streaking, what we want to do is dead easy. Get smaller of your chisel brushes, soft oil brush. Oh, I need some tissue, don't I? I also need some kitchen roll. Okay, get some kitchen roll or some sort of tissue. I want to spill all the thinner on my hand first of all. That's always the first thing to do. Oh joy. Dip this in the thinner. Soak it through, then get quite a bit of it off because I don't want a lot of it. I don't want to drench the model. Oh, the varnish, by the way, also protects the acrylic paint from oil paints, because, as you can imagine, oil paints and water-based paints, or oil paints and acrylics, strangely enough, don't go together very well. Just put a bit more on there, because it's not really... I'm just going to do this. Imagine I'm basting a turkey. In fact, don't imagine me cooking. It's probably the worst thing you can possibly imagine. I've got some little dots of paint ready, and all I'm going to do is just thin them ever so slightly. Tiny, not like in a wash or a slurry. I'm just making a nice little thin bit, and I'm going to do them this way. I want streaks coming from the wall, so I'm going to do a streak from here, and I don't have to be careful. That's probably too thin. Streak from here. I'll kind of mix and match them a bit. I hope you can see this. I'm kind of having to do it sideways so you can see it. Let's try one here. One here. I'll try and make them match to things on the wall, like little specks and spots that I've already painted. Some will just come from the top. Okay, let's try a bit of the... Doesn't matter about the colours getting mixed. I'm not really too fussed about rust because it's not really a metal, it's concrete. But I might do some rust, say from here, because that will go quite nicely with that stain I put on the wall. It's not very easy on this surface actually, I will tell you. Do some. I don't want them all to be from the top either, so I want some maybe here. Do one there. Give me as thick or as thin as you want. Do a green one for the hell of it. It's probably not the right colour of green, it's probably too much actually on there. Get some of that back. We'll do some this light grey blue colour. I'm just being careless because this is a building, remember, so it's not going to be perfect. Some engine grease. I'm realising now I'm painting this and I'm thinking, how am I going to get the brush in there when I do the streaking? See if you can see this. I mean, this might actually work. The thing with this diorama is I've not actually planned any of this. I'm kind of making it up as I go along. So, right, so I've got the paint down. Just give it a second to dry. Blow on it if you want. And all I'm going to do is quite simply with this brush, keep it dry, and I'm just going to try and do it so you can see it, but apologies if you can't. I'm just going to try and brush it this way, just very lightly, and then back again. I'll go back and forth. This may not actually work, but let's find out. Advantage of it being a long brush, you see. So I've not planned any of this. I'm not being particularly careful because I don't want it to look too carefully curated. I want it to look completely random. I'm not looking to do streaks like you get on, say, the side of a ship. Specifically, I'm not really looking for that. I'm just looking to break up the colour a bit. I may have left this to dry for too long, so let's just try the slightly moister brush just to break it up. See, these are a bit too harsh, so I'm just going to loosen the paint a bit with the slightly oily brush. Go back in with this one. If anything, this will just look like stuff that's run down the wall. When I did the smoke wash, there were a couple of bits where the smoke kind of went, and I hope my head wasn't in there then. The smoke kind of came down and made streaks and dribble marks, and that was fine because that's what I was looking for, just natural dribbles and streaks. And that, I think, will suffice. Let's just see what you can see. You probably can't see any of it. I'll just take this bit off. Just make sure they're vertical as well and not kind of going sideways or at a funny angle. As I'm so fond of saying, it's a subtle effect. I don't want anything too obvious. Some of it looks like streaks, some of it looks like where the paint's faded. That light blue is actually quite good for this dark blue area. The medium blue patch, it just makes it look like faded paint. And then on the floor, I'll just quickly do the floor. And then I think we're done for today, so I'll just moisten the floor. Now I'm not going to do so much streaks here as splots of colour. Oops, it's far too much. Again, the gloss varnish is protecting the acrylic paint. If I just did this straight over acrylic paint, it'd probably pull it up. So, on the floor we're going to do something a bit different. Bring back our little palette of the colours. And now what we're going to do is just do a bit of this. Some people call this filtering. Those are the different names for it. You could just call it, I mean, any kind of oil washes and pigments like this is filtering, really. You're adding filters. You're not colouring anything, you're not painting anything. You're just adding filters to it. So that's what we're doing. We're just adding different coloured filters. Some in the form of streaks, some in the form of splodges. And I'm being careless. I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing because I don't care, because I want it to look unplanned and random. Do a few more in the wall there. Go back to the dry brush. Move the thinner, move my paint. Always be wary where you put your little palette of paint, because the number of times I've put my palette of paint down and then sponged my arm in it is it's impossible to count. Oh, let's do a bit more rust. I've lost track of the number of times I've done that. Now again, because this is deserty, I don't want too much rust on the metal stuff. Okay, that's that there. Let's get the dry brush. And same again, we're just going to smear this. Now this was actually a bit too much thinner, but that's fine, because I want the floor to look oily and dirty. I don't want it to look like there's been deliberate painting. I want it to look like just random streaks. You know, you work in a warehouse or a factory or anything like that, you know, you don't plan where the dirt and stuff goes. There's all kinds of traffic on this floor. I'll do some areas I'll do splotchy. I just want to break it up. I'm not doing streaks because it's the floor, not a wall, so I'm not getting water running down the floor. That would be kind of bizarre. But going backwards and forth in that direction is probably a good idea. Got some rust on the wall there. Right, and that's the floor. It doesn't do a massive amount. It just gives it some randomness, gives it some funky dirt and colour. Being careful with this little hand grab handle. This little handle here has popped off. This one has already popped off about 4 times. So being careful of that one. Feather that out. And that's all it is really. I'm going to do some more on this wall here. And then when that's dried, I'll leave that to dry for 24 hours. And then what I'll do after that is some dry brushing with the Starship filth and engine grease, just to bring out some of these dark corners again and around these bits of stuff on the wall. Let that dry again for 24 hours. Matte varnish the whole thing. And I'll probably redo some pastels on these again, because when I did all the varnishes, you probably can't see, when you do all the varnish layers, like I said in the last bit, or in the bit with the pastels fade away, so they look nice and dusty and dry. As they've been varnished over with matte and gloss varnishes, they've lost that shine, that dirtiness and dustiness, and they just look like different colours. So I'll do that again, and I'll put more pastel on, matte varnish it, keep going. I don't need to do any more gloss varnish on this now, because this is the oils are the last step. After I've done the oil paints, there's nothing else to do on here. So I'll get the rest of the oil paints done, stick some matte varnish, a bit more pastels maybe, and then jobs are good. And what I'll do, I'll wrap it up here now because it's going on a bit this episode. I'll go off and do that wall, get all the rest of the bits done, and then what we'll do, either at the end of this episode, or if it takes too long to dry, I'm keen to get this off to e-models, so what I might do is put a picture of all this when it's done at the start of the next episode. So that's going to do us. Yeah, looking pretty dirty and grubby. Not looking particularly Middle Eastern, more Central European, behind the Berlin Wall, but never mind. So that'll do. I'll just move that out of the way. Thank you very much for watching. As always, models supplied by emodels.co.uk. Go along to their website. It's I am biased, but I'm not biased. It is just by far the best online model supply store. Models, kits, paints, equipment, whatever you want, they've got it. If they don't have it, you don't need it. So go along to emodels.co.uk. Go along to their Facebook page as well, facebook.com/emodels_ltd. Now I'm having to say that from memory now, and I've got no choice because of the white screens that you can't see here. I can't see the little piece of paper I had with it written on. That's my secret, I'll tell you that now. I've never been able to remember it. So facebook.com/emodels_ltd. Post pictures up, send pictures to them. Their teeth. Start again. Send them pictures of your works. They'll post them up on there for you so everybody else can ooh and ah them. You'll see works by other people. Some brilliant work on there. And it's a great community. So go and hang out. They'll also keep you updated with products they've got coming out and what's new to the store and what's on offer. But go along there. So emodels.co.uk and facebook.com/emodels_ltd. And last of all, go to my website, modelmaking.guru. That's .guru. I've got a blog that I still haven't updated in ages, although I've posted up some of these videos on there. Pieces for sale, I've got galleries of all my works, and I do commissions. So go along and check that out. I'm also on Facebook. You'll find me on there. It's just Model Making Guru. And on Twitter, @ModelMakingGuru. But enough about me. Thank you very much for watching, as always. Take care of yourselves. Oh, I have been told that I should have the decals for the Stryker in the next few weeks. So now this diorama is largely done, there's nothing else for me to do now until the decals turn up. There's not enough for me to make a film, so there might be a gap now, probably in the new year before I get them. So there may be a gap of a few weeks before the next episode, unless I can fill half an hour with filing a tyre. That's not very exciting. So be patient. Might be a gap before the next episode. As soon as they turn up, I'll do the next bit anyway. But that'll do it. Take care of yourselves. If we don't see you before then, have yourselves a fantastic Christmas and a really slightly wobbly New Year. Hope you get lots of good presents, lots of good models and things like that. And we shall see you probably in the new year. But until then, adios amoebas.